What's going on, guys? CTG Matt back. Today I want to talk about one specific NBA team that has been frustrating me over the last few weeks, well, really since the start of the season. It's the Los Angeles Clippers. They are in big trouble. I'm here to explain why. They lost yesterday's game to the Denver Nuggets in what I would deem as horrible fashion is the way that they lost. In that game yesterday, something got pointed out to me basically by the way that they played. They don't have any other ball handlers, with Bradley Beal now done for the season, Chris Paul being a shell of his former self, Kawhi Leonard not playing as per usual, and them just having no other offensive pieces. Bogdanovich wasn't great yesterday. They had no offense. Beal done for the season. They've needed scoring. And I'll point it out just like this. With a minute left before halftime, the Clippers led the Nuggets by a score of 68-61. By the 5:45 mark in the third quarter, that's about half the quarter gone, so I'd say about 7 minutes, the Nuggets were then leading 87-76. That's an extended run of 26-8 across half a quarter. And the big thing I noticed during all of that was they had no offense besides just a James Harden pick and roll. I know last year they looked pretty damn good with James Harden kind of one-man armying at some points, but they had Norm still back then. They had another guy who could go get some buckets. Yesterday, they were actually relying on Derrick Jones Jr. off the bounce getting buckets. It worked sometimes, but other times it didn't. They were running Kobe Brown 1-5s with Zoo. Chris Dunn pick and roll with Zoo. They don't care. No defense respects that. Ended up getting run off the court by Nikola Jokic, who is obviously the best player in the world, so there's no real gripe there. But I would say the only time the Clippers really looked competent and good in that game yesterday was in the beginning of the second quarter when Nikola Jokic wasn't out there. They ran Valanciunas off the floor. They went on like a 19-2 run to start the quarter. They looked really, really good. Then Jokic checked back in, and the game was basically over. And I'll say to start the quarter, James Harden wasn't out there. Their third unit, I guess, kinda, gave them some more time. Kobe Simmons hit a couple of threes. They had some random fucking dudes out there who were playing above what I expected from them. And it was able to give James Harden an extended break. But unfortunately, it didn't really matter. Once Jokic checked back in, nothing mattered anymore. But it goes deeper than just yesterday's game for the Clippers, why I have my worries for them. You can even look to the Hawks game. They lose to a Trae Young-less Hawks. They lose to Vit Krejci, banked in a three. Of course, there's a little bit of luck that goes into that. He did not mean to bank in that goddamn three. But at the same time, Vit Krejci was getting off against them. Mo Gay had a decent game against them. And again, it just pointed out to me they have no other offense besides the James Harden screen and roll. Go look at the end of that game. I'm sorry. James Harden had one of the worst turnovers of his career. I don't say that very often. I don't like being one of those people that's like hyperbolic or whatever and blows everything out of proportion. But it was a disgustingly bad turnover by a future Hall of Famer. It was laughable how bad that turnover was. He runs a 1-5 screen and roll with John Collins. Actually, it's 1-4, but either way. He runs his pick and roll with John Collins. They come up and they blitz him on the screen. Hard hedge and blitz him on the screen. Harden, I shit you not, picks up the ball and throws a 180 pass. Like, it was closer to a 360. But he ends up just throwing a whirly-dirly-ass pass, jumping in the air and whipping it into the middle of nowhere. It gets intercepted, it leads to a bucket, and effectively the game's over right there. I know James kept them in that game. He had an and 1-3. He had another big three. He had some really huge plays down the stretch. But when they blitzed him and when they forced them to be beat by anybody else on the floor, they said, James, we're going to trap you. We're going to blitz you on screens. We're not going to let you get off. That's how we're going to end the game. And it ended the game because nobody else could do anything. In years prior, they were able to get away with this because they had Norm Powell. When they don't have Kawhi Leonard, they had a guy like Norm who could go create something, who could go get a bucket, for Christ's sake. Now there's nobody there. Bradley Beal was supposed to be that guy. Of course, as I said before, he has this hip surgery. He's done for the season. I hyped this team up a lot because they had depth. I thought they had more depth than last year's team. They had Brook Lopez. They had Chris Paul, who, by the way, looked good last year. Chris Paul was a good basketball player last season, right? They had John Collins. They still have Bogey Bogdanovich. And yet, Chris Paul is unplayable. Brad Beal's done for the year. John Collins has been terrific defensively. Offensively, not great. And Bogey Bogdanovic, I don't even know where he's at. Right now, everyone on their team is super polar, and I have Cleaning the Glass pulled up to kind of show this. You're going to laugh at this. James Harden has their highest, efficiency differential, basically stating he's the most valuable player on the team, I think, as we all know. But the more interesting parts that I can see out of this is when James Harden's on the floor, their defense is 5.5 points worse. When Ivica Zubac is on the floor, their defense is 4 points worse. This is all per 100 possessions. And Derrick Jones Jr. plus 7 opponent points per 100 possessions when he's on the floor. There's only like 3 net positive defenders here. It's John Collins, it's Brook Lopez, and it's Chris Dunn. That's about it. I'll give credit where it's due. In the limited minutes he's played, I will say Kobe Brown has some all right defensive moments. Cam Christie has been all right defensively. But these are guys that you can't always rely upon. By the way, they have 2 guys on the roster named Kobe. Neither one's Bryant, so that's pretty shitty. But you look at it, James Harden, the offense is plus 20 with him on the floor per 100 possessions. It's 19.9, I'm rounding up. Plus 20 with James Harden on the floor per 100 possessions. That is in the 98th percentile. They're an elite offense when James Harden's on the floor. Not an elite offense, but they're a way better offense when James Harden's on the floor. But when James Harden's off the floor, it's troublesome. Zubac is helping out offensively, but he's been a net negative defensively compared to last year. Somebody told him to lose weight. Whoever got in his ear about losing, I heard that. He lost like 20 pounds or whatever in the offseason. Why? You had a fringe all-star season last year, and you come back with less weight. I'm not going to criticize a guy for ever getting into better shape. Don't get me wrong. But Ivica Zubac is a punisher, bruiser type of big man, and losing weight for him just still makes no sense. Even now, I think about it. Clippers fans, talk to me down below about that one. Who the fuck told him to lose weight? Who? I need names. Derrick Jones Jr., the offense is 9 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor. But again, net negative defensively right now. He's grading out as. John Collins has been great defensively. I watch their games, and I see JC actually impacting on that side of the ball. And it shows in the advanced stats as well. The defense is 12 points per 100 possessions better with JC, John Collins on the floor, but the offense is 10 points worse with him on the floor. I think it's also because he's not a great screener. He doesn't set solid screens, and that's kind of what James Harden needs, is a solid screener to get people off his hip. But Brook Lopez has been a net negative offensively. Everyone's super polar here. The guys that have been really good defensively, John Collins, Brook Lopez, Chris Dunn, have all been really bad offensively. Chris Dunn's shooting 41% from 3, and the offense is still 11.5 points worse with him on the floor per 100 possessions. How does that even make sense? A guy shooting 40% from 3. He had a nice and one layup yesterday, too. And guess what? It still doesn't matter because defenses don't give a shit about him. Defenses just don't care when Chris Dunn's on the floor. They're like, oh, well, dude. And again, without Brad Beal, without Chris Paul, there's no other ball handlers here. Bogey Bogdanovic, I don't think I've heard his name once this season, I swear to God. We could talk more season-long stuff, though. They have the lowest amount of field goal attempts per game in the league. They average the least amount of shots per game. Again, that shows that there's a couple of reasons why, I'll say. They have the slowest pace in the league, so that definitely doesn't help. They looked really good yesterday against the Nuggets when they got out in transition. They've looked good all year when they get out in transition. Why? Because they don't have ball handlers for a half-court game. If they can get out in transition, Derrick Jones Jr. can dribble through. He can handle a 2-on-1, fast break. He can't handle running the entire offense when James Harden gets doubled. So they have the slowest pace in the league despite only having like 2 ball handlers max on the team when Kawhi's healthy. So you have to be able to get out in transition, but they're not. They're 14th in 3-point attempts and 14th in 3-point percentage, so they're middle of the pack in a lot of stats. A lot of the stats you look at, they're a middle of the pack team. They have the second lowest amount of free throw attempts in the league. Again, I'm just saying this. They don't have many ball handlers. James Harden is the only guy on their team. I love Kawhi Leonard. He's not a free throw guy. He's not a guy that's going to get 8, 9 attempts in a game. He's not a guy that's going to crack 10. James Harden is their free throw guy. The rest of the roster, again, not scorers, non-ball handlers. Nobody's getting those calls. They're 20th in offensive rebounding, 27th in defensive rebounding, and Ivica Zubac is anchoring that defense. Again, I love Zubac, but he just hasn't looked the same this year, And again, 27th in defensive rebounding. They're 26th in total rebounding. I don't know what happened on that front. Again, it's a team without identity right now. You don't know what their identity is. Are they a great defensive team? Well, no, because they're 26th in defensive rating. Oh, so surely they're a good offensive team then. No, they're 20th in offensive rating. Their net rating's 23rd in the goddamn league. There's no identity here. Are they a defensive first team? Sometimes. Like, there's some lineups where they're legit good defensively. They ran out lineups yesterday with Harden, Dunn, Jones, Collins, and Zubac. That was a good defensive lineup. But then they'll also go out there and they're not able to score. That same lineup that's great defensively can't get a ball in the hoop. So they're a middle-of-the-pack three-point shooting team. They're 24th in mid-range scoring. So they aren't even scoring in the mid either. They don't get downhill very much. There's not a ton of guys. I don't think they're at the top in points in the paint. I can go check that. They're 14th in points in the paint. They're 14th in percentage of their points in the paint. So middle of the pack. Again, it's just another one of those teams where I look at it and I'm like, they're middle of the pack in everything. How about percentage of their points off turnovers? They're actually, where are they? Oh, 13th, right around middle of the pack. They're middle of the pack in everything except for what matters, which is defensive rating or offensive rating. Again, it's a team with no identity right now, and I think they have to be able to lean on their defense. They have to. They have to be able to play great defense, because right now their half-court offense is atrocious and they don't run. Again, slowest pace in basketball. You have to be able to get out on the break, and it starts with getting a damn stop. But if you're 26th in defensive rating, you aren't getting many stops. They're 22nd in opponent second chance points. They allow the 8th most second chance points per game. Again, that just backpacks on the fact that they're 27th in defensive rebounding. They don't crash the fucking glass. They have like 2 rebounders. Zubac is trying his ass off, but again, he looks visibly smaller. And again, I heard that he lost weight in the offseason, a lot of people are saying. Again, the dumbest move. The dumbest move. And I said they don't get out on the break. They're 29th in fast break points. 29th, second lowest in basketball. Again, that just backpacks on the fact that they have absolutely no pace to their game. They don't get out in transition. And when they don't get out in transition, they're done. Because if you can hold them to a half-court offense where it's just James Harden trying to be the only guy that can put the ball in the hoop, you're done. We're going to double-team James Harden and make Derrick Jones Jr. beat us off the bounce. We're going to let Chris Dunn try and beat us off the pound. It goes even beyond this season, because I'm saying they're fucked right now because they are without Chris Paul being a player for them. He's getting CDDNPs, guys. Coach's decision DNPs. Chris Paul, a guy that played 82 games last year and was a net positive on offense to the point where the Spurs were not the same when he was not on the floor. They're obviously without Bradley Beal for the remainder of the season, which is already one of the worst signings of the offseason. I will go ahead and outright say that. Again, I gassed it up a little bit because Bradley Beal, for how bad his contract was, his play wasn't as god-awful last season. He was like a 40% three-point shooter. Like, there was some value there offensively for Bradley Beal. But with him being out and him going back to his Phoenix Suns version of unlimited PTO man, it's not a great look. It's going to be one of the worst signings of the offseason if I had to regrade it. The John Collins trade wasn't that bad, but again, he just hasn't really fit right now. Again, it's really this lost identity of, are we a great defensive team or are we a great offensive team? And when the answer's neither, you're kind of just floating in purgatory. Closer to hell, I would say, actually. If you go to lineups, I'll pull up their lineups right now. Their most played lineup this season was Harden, Beal, Kawhi, Jones, and Zubac. That team was god-awful defensively. Their points per 100 possessions was actually like in the 60th percentile, which is respectable. But their defense was, oh my God, they would allow 133 points per 100 possessions. That's the 3rd percentile. So even their best lineup was god-awful defensively. That's 130 possessions of that. Their positive lineup. Do they have a positive lineup? Their closest positive lineup is Harden, Dunn, Kawhi, Jones, Zubac. And that lineup has played 41 possessions. Of 992 possible possessions, they've played 40 fucking one. But again, back to the overlapping point. Their 2026 pick is going to Oklahoma City. Unless they finish with a better record than OKC or Houston, then it would go to Philadelphia. So if they finish with a better record than OKC and Houston, their pick would go to Philly. We all know that at the pace they're playing at right now, they are not going to be better than OKC, and they're not going to be better than Houston, which means their pick would go to the OKC Thunder of all fucking people. So thanks, Clippers, for ruining basketball, essentially, because if their pick lands in the top 5, OKC gets a top 5 fucking pick and has a chance to win the finals. I mean, that's like, I really don't know how else to describe it. It's like, was it the Celtics that won the championship and had the number 1 pick the same year or whatever the hell? That's what it's looking like right now. They don't have a pick in 2028, so they don't have a first-round pick in 2028. And their 2027 pick could convey to OKC. We don't quite know yet. But they are without a pick this season, and they're without a pick in 2 years in 2028 down the line. 2027 is not even a guaranteed pick. It's not even guaranteed they're going to have it. The wildest part is you scroll up and down, and you see that like their shooters aren't playing that bad. James Harden 39% from 3. You know, Chris Dunn's shooting almost 40 from 3. Like, he's 8 for 21 on all threes. Their shooters aren't playing bad. Batum's been really bad. Batum has been really bad this year. I believe he had a pull-up 3 in transition that he missed, like, really bad against the Hawks the other day, late in that game, too. To the point where, like, I literally asked myself, fourth quarter, why the fuck Batum in? Zubac's at the rim this year, not great. Not great. It's only a 51%, 66th percentile compared to, again, or no, I'm reading that wrong. 61st percentile, 73%, as compared to last year when he was elite finishing around the rim. Their offense, again, I don't know if it's the issue, but it is an issue. The fact that they have no other ball handlers. John Collins has taken 35 mid-range shots. He's made 31% of them. He's 11 for 35. Kawhi Leonard being out, you see that like this ship could sink very quickly if things don't get better soon. And I'm not exactly sure how they will get better soon. Again, maybe that's leaning more into their defensive identity and being more of a transition team. But that would be a little bit harder to do considering Zubac is your center. Zubac isn't necessarily the most fleeted foot. Even though he did somehow lose weight, he's still not very fast. So I think they need to play with more pace if they really want to win games this year. They can't rely on being a good half-court offense because you don't have half-court creators like you did last year like Norman Powell. They need to rely on their transition points, but the fact is they're not doing that right now because their defense isn't great either. So they're really in absolute basketball hell right now where it's like, well, our defense isn't bad enough to get us transition points, but our offense isn't good enough to get us half-court points. So you're not scoring in general. And on top of that, when you're missing a bunch of shots, you're allowing a bunch of transition points. Their defense hasn't been great either. The Clippers all around seem fucked. And Kawhi Leonard is coming back soon. But every time I hear Kawhi Leonard 7 to 10 days or whatever the hell, I really start to think, is it really going to be 7 to 10 days? Because the last few times we've heard that from Kawhi, it has not been 7 to 10 days. I mean, it's bad when I think about the positives on this team, and like the only ones I can think of are like Jordan Miller and Kobe Sanders hit a couple of threes yesterday. He looked relatively well. And the negatives are just like everyone else. I mean, Chris Dunn's getting himself in foul trouble early in games. They're not rebounding the ball well at all. I don't know, man. They have multiple possessions in a row with turnovers again because they don't have more than one ball handler. They're just fucked. I don't know what else to say. I'm hopeful that the Clippers can turn this around because, again, this was a team that I actually wanted to see do well this season, I guess. But I believe they're on now 6 straight losses. They just got 50-pieced by Jokic. They have no pick this season. This is basketball hell. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe. Clippers fans, talk to me down below. I'm going to go catch the game. See you guys in the next one.